Every morning, we awaken to the rhythmic cadence of existence, following a seemingly immutable cycle: wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. Day after day, this routine unfolds, an endless loop that appears destined never to break. But why? What is the ultimate purpose of this incessant repetition? Perhaps you've experienced that strange, unsettling moment when everything suddenly seems devoid of meaning. When endeavors that once held immense importance now feel hollow, and life itself begins to resemble a meticulously constructed machine operating without a discernible purpose or inherent reason. Albert Camus, the renowned philosopher, grappled with this profound sentiment. Yet, instead of succumbing to despair, he uncovered an answer, a perspective that could irrevocably transform the way you perceive life. For millennia, humanity found solace in a foundational anchor, a grand narrative that meticulously explained everything. Every birth, every struggle, every heartbreak possessed intrinsic meaning, for it was woven into the fabric of a divine plan. Life, though arduous, offered clear direction. Suffering was not random, it was a test, a lesson, or even a deliberate step towards something greater. Death itself was not an absolute end but merely a threshold, a doorway leading to another existence, a reunion with a higher power. People derived immense comfort from this deeply held belief. They gazed upon the vastness of the cosmos and perceived deliberate design, they confronted their pain and discerned profound meaning. This unwavering certainty rendered the complexities of life bearable. But then, everything began to change. The relentless march of scientific discovery irrevocably reshaped the world. Charles Darwin unveiled a theory suggesting that life wasn't divinely crafted but rather sculpted by the slow, indifferent forces of evolution. The Big Bang theory proposed a universe that didn't revolve around us, but emerged from physical forces expanding and unfolding according to mathematical laws, not moral imperatives. Diseases, natural disasters, and individual suffering, these were no longer seen as punishments or divine tests. They were often random, chaotic, and inherently meaningless events. As these scientific explanations gained undeniable traction, the ancient stories, once so powerful, began to recede into the shadows. Religion's grip loosened, and with it, humanity lost something profoundly comforting: certainty. Friedrich Nietzsche famously anticipated this shift. He declared, "God is dead," yet this was not a triumphant cry, but rather a somber warning. He wasn't suggesting the literal demise of a divine being. Instead, he meant that humanity had ceased to believe in the traditional sense. Faith, which had historically structured society, morality, and human purpose, was slowly but surely crumbling. And when faith dissipates, so too does certainty. For centuries, people had relied on religion to provide answers to life's most fundamental questions: why are we here? What is our purpose? What awaits us after death? But now, those comforting answers were gone. In their stark absence, only silence remained, a cold, indifferent universe stretching endlessly, offering no discernible purpose, no grand design, no final destination. This was far more than a mere intellectual crisis, it was deeply personal. For when meaning is stripped away, so too is a sense of stability. Individuals were left gazing into an immense void, struggling to comprehend their own existence. If there is no higher purpose, then why endure the daily grind? Why pursue dreams, fall in love, build families, or strive for anything at all, if in the end, it all dissolves into nothingness? For many, this realization was utterly terrifying. Some plunged into despair, while others desperately clung to illusions. Some chose to numb themselves with relentless distractions, chasing money, status, or fleeting pleasures, anything to avoid confronting the terrifying truth that, perhaps, life is utterly meaningless. And this is precisely where Albert Camus enters the picture. He stood resolutely at the precipice of this existential crisis and refused to avert his gaze. He grappled with the same terrifying questions, staring directly into the abyss. But instead of surrendering to despair, he discovered something truly unexpected: a way forward. A path not just to merely exist in a meaningless world, but to genuinely find joy within it. Humans possess an unshakable, innate need for meaning. It's hardwired into our very being from the moment we are old enough to formulate questions. We demand answers. Why are we here? What is our purpose? Is there something greater beyond this tangible reality? We gaze at the immense expanse of the universe, at stars stretching endlessly into infinity, and we instinctively expect it to respond, to confirm that we matter, that we belong, that our struggles, our joys, and our love are not in vain. Yet, the universe remains utterly silent. No voice echoes from the void. No divine script manifests in the sky. No cosmic force reassures us that everything will ultimately be okay. Albert Camus famously termed this profound disconnect the absurd. It's the inherent clash between our desperate, ingrained need for meaning and a universe that steadfastly refuses to provide one. It's akin to screaming into an empty canyon, endlessly waiting for an answer that will simply never come. And that silence, Camus believed, is unbearable. Therefore, most people instinctually attempt to escape it. When confronted with the potential meaninglessness of life, individuals tend to fall into three common traps. Denial, clinging to artificial meaning. Some people steadfastly refuse to accept that life holds no inherent meaning. Instead, they latch on to readily available answers, organized religion, compelling political ideologies, or comforting cultural narratives. They construct elaborate stories, believing that some higher power or intricate system has a grand, overarching plan. While this approach can indeed provide a sense of stability, it often demands blind faith, effectively ignoring the fundamental reality that the universe is not obligated to provide us with meaning. Nihilism, falling into despair. Others move in the exact opposite direction. If life has no inherent meaning, they contend, then absolutely nothing matters. Love, beauty, morality, it's all an elaborate illusion. This is nihilism, the belief that life is utterly pointless. And this belief frequently brings with it profound depression, cynicism, and even self-destructive tendencies. If nothing truly matters, why bother doing anything at all? Escape, numbing ourselves with distractions. Then there's arguably the most prevalent response, distraction. People actively drown out the terrifying existential void with relentless work, the pursuit of money, constant entertainment, or fleeting pleasures. They chase career success, social status, endless diversions, or temporary gratifications, anything to avoid confronting the deeply unsettling reality that, deep down, they don't truly understand why they're doing any of it. Just look around. How many people do you see endlessly scrolling on their phones, partying without genuine joy, chasing wealth but never feeling truly satisfied? They aren't genuinely living, they're running. Running from the void, from the oppressive silence, from the terrifying fear that perhaps, just perhaps, life doesn't come with a pre-written purpose. But Camus, remarkably, refused to run. He faced the absurd head-on, looking it directly in the eye, and did something utterly unexpected: he embraced it. In doing so, he discovered a powerful fourth option, one that could lead not merely to survival, but to profound, authentic happiness. Camus found his illuminating answer in an ancient Greek myth, the captivating story of Sisyphus. This tale had endured for centuries, yet it had never been interpreted with the profound insight Camus brought to it. Sisyphus was no ordinary man, he was a king, renowned for his cunning and rebellious spirit, someone who steadfastly refused to submit to fate. He outwitted the gods, escaped the underworld, and even attempted to outmaneuver death itself. He was clever, perhaps too clever, and the gods, left with no alternative, chose to punish him in a manner they believed would utterly crush his spirit forever. His punishment, an eternity of utterly meaningless labor. Every single day, Sisyphus was condemned to push a massive boulder up a steep mountain. And just as he neared the summit, when it seemed he might finally complete his arduous task, the boulder would inevitably roll back down to the very bottom, erasing all his effort. Again and again, endlessly, with no reprieve, no reward, no escape. It was the ultimate curse. The gods understood that physical suffering could eventually be endured, but hopelessness, that is what truly destroys a human spirit. And what could possibly be more hopeless than a task that would never end, never change, and never hold any intrinsic meaning? Most people contemplating this ancient story instinctively shudder. It seems to serve as a perfect metaphor for the inherent futility of life itself. We wake up, we toil, we chase dreams, we struggle, we lose, we try again, and in the end, we all inevitably meet the same fate, death. No matter how much we achieve, no matter how high we climb, everything eventually resets. Generations before us have worked, built, and strived, only for their achievements to fade with time. Monuments crumble, names are forgotten, entire civilizations rise and fall. If life is simply an endless cycle of struggle leading to nothing, what indeed is the point? That is why many perceive Sisyphus as a tragic figure. His suffering mirrors our own, his punishment our daily grind, our unanswered questions, our endless search for meaning in a universe that remains stubbornly unresponsive. But Camus, with his singular vision, perceived something entirely different, something that completely inverted the traditional meaning of the story. What if Sisyphus isn't actually suffering? What if Sisyphus is, in fact, free? It sounds utterly absurd at first blush. How could anyone possibly be free in a situation so relentlessly torturous? But here is Camus' profound realization: the very moment Sisyphus accepts his fate, when he ceases resisting, when he stops wishing for circumstances to be different, he becomes more powerful than the very gods who cursed him. The gods intended to break him, to make him suffer under the crushing weight of hopelessness. But what if he simply refused to suffer? Imagine Sisyphus standing at the bottom of the mountain, watching his boulder inexorably roll back down. But instead of cursing the gods or sinking into despair, he simply shrugs, takes a deep breath, and begins pushing again. No complaints, no self-pity, no desperate need for a grand, overarching reason. What if, as he walks back down to retrieve his boulder, he even smiles? Camus famously wrote, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy." And that single, powerful line changes absolutely everything. Because it implies that we are not crushed by meaninglessness unless we actively choose to be. It signifies that life's fundamental lack of inherent purpose is not a curse, it is, astonishingly, an opportunity. Camus firmly believed that we are all, in essence, Sisyphus. We awaken each morning, we engage in our work, we pursue our ambitions, we stumble, we rise again, we cultivate relationships, we create things, and we strive to carve out a unique place in the world. And yes, ultimately, it all resets. Generations from now, nothing we do may be remembered. But does that necessarily mean what we do is worthless? Only if we choose to perceive it that way. Here's the crucial insight: once we accept that life holds no grand, cosmic meaning, we are liberated to create our own. Consider this: if life had some ultimate, predetermined meaning, we would be forever trapped by it. We wouldn't truly be free, we would merely be following a pre-written script. But precisely because there is no fixed meaning, we are empowered to decide what truly matters to us. Instead of passively waiting for the universe to bestow a purpose upon us, we realize we don't need one. We cease our endless quest for some ultimate justification for our existence and begin living purely for the experience itself. The true beauty of the absurd lies in this understanding. Embracing the absurd isn't about pretending life possesses some deep, cosmic purpose. Nor is it about succumbing to despair and declaring, "Nothing matters, so why bother trying?" Rather, it is about actively revolting against the absurd by choosing to live fully anyway. Not because we anticipate some grand reward, not because we believe in an afterlife, fate, or some divine script, but simply because we can. Because joy is unequivocally possible, even in a meaningless universe. Because we can choose to love, to create, to laugh, to explore, not for some higher reason, but simply because it is inherently worth it in the present moment. Finding freedom in the absurd means that instead of perceiving life as a curse, we embrace it as a vast playground, a boundless space where we are free to explore, to build, to stumble, to experience everything fully, without needing any external justification. And that's precisely why Sisyphus is happy. He knows his task will never conclude. He knows the boulder will always roll back down. But he pushes it anyway, not because it will lead somewhere definitive, but because he chooses to. And when we cease asking, what's the point, and begin asking, why not? That is when we genuinely become free. That is when life becomes lighter, brighter, more exhilarating. Because instead of endlessly searching for a meaning that doesn't inherently exist, we start actively creating one for ourselves. And in that transformative moment, we win the game of the absurd. Camus' philosophy of absurdism was not merely a concept to ponder, it was a way of life. He didn't advocate for passively contemplating the meaninglessness of existence. Instead, he championed embracing it, transforming it into a powerful fuel for action. But how, practically, do we actually achieve that? Here are 3 actionable ways to embody an absurdist life. Stop overthinking, start acting. Most of us spend our lives ensnared in cycles of overthinking. What if I fail? What if things don't work out? What if I make the wrong choice? We hesitate, we analyze endlessly, we wait for the perfect time. But here's the truth, the universe does not care. You could spend your entire life worrying about every conceivable outcome, but the reality is, none of it matters as much as you believe it does. Lost your job? So what? The world continues to turn, and another opportunity will inevitably arise. Failed at something? Who cares? The universe isn't keeping score. Made a mistake? Welcome to being human, simply move on. Camus teaches us that life is absurd, inherently unpredictable, and often chaotic. Instead of squandering precious energy on overthinking, simply take action. Because in the end, whether you succeed or fail, the boulder is going to roll back down anyway. So why stress over it? Rebel with joy. When you cease searching for a predefined meaning, you begin to truly experience life. Most people mistakenly believe that meaninglessness is a reason to despair. But Camus saw it as a profound opportunity. Since life holds no inherent meaning, you are absolutely free to enjoy it on your own terms. Think about it, when you laugh wholeheartedly, even though life is meaningless, you are actively rebelling against the absurd. When you love deeply, knowing that everything eventually fades, you are rebelling against the absurd. When you create, knowing that nothing lasts forever, you are rebelling against the absurd. Every act of joy, every moment of genuine connection, is a powerful form of defiance. Instead of dwelling in a state of feeling lost, rebel by passionately embracing life anyway. Laugh loudly, love deeply, explore fearlessly, all without needing an external reason. Ask, why not? Most of us hesitate before making significant decisions. Should I start that business? Should I take that risk? Should I travel the world, learn something entirely new, or finally follow my passion? And invariably, our minds conjure up a litany of reasons why we shouldn't. It's too risky, it might not work, it's simply not practical, what if I fail? But Camus would encourage us to flip the question. Instead of asking, why should I, he'd urge us to ask, why not? Why not start that creative project? Why not take that calculated risk? Why not live boldly, embracing every moment? Because at the end of the day, the boulder is going to roll back down no matter what. So, why not have some fun with it? Camus' absurdism is not about surrendering to meaninglessness, it's about actively revolting against it by choosing to live, to act, to experience everything without needing some preordained purpose. And once you begin to view life through this transformative lens, everything changes. You stop waiting, you stop hesitating, you stop worrying about things that ultimately don't truly matter. Instead, you start genuinely living. From the very moment we are born, we are indoctrinated with the idea that life has a distinct purpose. Society, religion, culture, everyone provides us with readily available answers. This is the right path. This is what you must do. This is what will give your life meaning. And so, we spend our entire lives searching, seeking meaning in career success, in profound relationships, in firmly held beliefs, compelling ideologies, and significant achievements. But what if the profound truth is this: there is no inherent meaning? Not one written in the stars, not one waiting to be discovered, not one hidden within some ancient, sacred text. At first, this revelation might sound utterly terrifying. Yet, Camus saw it profoundly differently. If life holds no inherent meaning, then you are completely, magnificently free. Free from the crushing weight of expectations, free from external pressures, free from the burdensome need for an imposed reason to live. And in that unparalleled freedom, you gain something truly extraordinary: the boundless power to create your own meaning. Not because the universe grants it to you, not because some higher force demands it, but simply because you choose it. Camus' message is simple, yet profoundly liberating: live fully. Laugh loudly. Love deeply. Create. Explore. Experience. Not because life has a predetermined purpose, but simply because you are alive. And that, in itself, is more than enough. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Albert Camus. What are your thoughts? Do you resonate with Camus' unique perspective on life and meaning? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this discussion thought-provoking and insightful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a new upload. See you in the next one. He was condemned to push a massive boulder up an impossibly steep mountain. Just as he neared the summit, when the completion of his arduous task seemed within reach, the boulder would inevitably roll back down to the bottom, obliterating all his effort. This torment repeated endlessly, without respite, without reward, without any hope of escape. It was the ultimate curse, devised by gods who understood that mere physical suffering could be endured, but the crushing weight of hopelessness, that was what truly destroyed a man. And what could be more utterly hopeless than a task destined never to end, never to change, and never to hold any inherent meaning? Most people confront this ancient myth and instinctively shudder. It strikes them as the perfect, chilling metaphor for the inherent futility of life itself. We wake, we toil, we chase dreams, we struggle, we lose, we try again. And in the end, regardless of our triumphs or failures, we all meet the same inescapable fate: death. No matter how much we accomplish, how high we climb, or how much we build, eventually, everything resets. Generations before us have labored, created, and strived, only for their achievements to inevitably fade with time. Monuments crumble, names are forgotten, entire civilizations rise and fall. If life truly is just an endless cycle of struggle leading ultimately to nothing, then what, precisely, is the point of it all? This is why so many view Sisyphus as a profoundly tragic figure. His suffering mirrors our own, his eternal punishment reflects our daily grind, our unanswered questions, our relentless search for meaning in a universe that often seems indifferent and unresponsive. But Albert Camus, the existentialist philosopher, perceived something entirely different, a radical insight that flipped the entire meaning of the story upside down. What if Sisyphus is not suffering? What if Sisyphus is, in fact, free? It sounds utterly absurd at first blush. How could anyone possibly be free in a situation as dire and constrained as his? Yet, here's what Camus brilliantly realized: the very moment Sisyphus accepts his fate, when he ceases to resist, stops wishing for things to be different, he transcends his tormentors. He becomes, in that act of acceptance, more powerful than the gods who cursed him. The gods intended to break his spirit, to make him suffer endlessly under the crushing weight of hopelessness. But what if he simply refused to suffer? Imagine Sisyphus standing at the bottom of the mountain, watching his boulder roll back down. But instead of cursing the gods or sinking into despair, he simply shrugs, takes a deep breath, and begins pushing again. No complaints, no self-pity, no demand for a grand, external reason. What if, as he walks back down the mountain to retrieve his boulder, he even smiles? Camus famously wrote, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy." And that single, audacious line changes everything. Because it means we are not crushed by meaninglessness unless we actively choose to be. It means that life's lack of inherent, predetermined purpose is not a curse, it is, in fact, an extraordinary opportunity. Camus believed that, in a profound sense, we are all Sisyphus. We wake every morning, go to work, chase our ambitions. We fall, we get up. We build relationships, create things, and strive to carve out a place in the world. And yes, ultimately, it all resets. Generations from now, nothing we do may be remembered. But does that inherent impermanence mean what we do is worthless? Only if we choose to perceive it that way. Here's the profound key: once we accept that life possesses no grand, cosmic, preordained meaning, we become completely free to create our own. Think about it: if life had some ultimate, predetermined purpose, we would, in essence, be trapped by it. We wouldn't be truly free, we'd merely be following a script. But precisely because there is no fixed meaning, we gain the radical power to decide what truly matters to us. Instead of waiting for the universe to hand us a purpose, we realize we don't need one. We stop searching for some ultimate justification for our existence and, instead, begin living fully for the experience itself. This, then, is the liberating beauty of the absurd. This is what embracing it truly means. It's not about pretending life possesses some deep, cosmic purpose. Nor is it about succumbing to despair, throwing up our hands and declaring, "Nothing matters, so why try?" Instead, it is about actively revolting against the absurd by choosing to live fully anyway. Not because we expect some grand, ultimate reward, not because we believe in an afterlife, or fate, or some divine script, but simply because we can. Because joy is possible, even in a fundamentally meaningless universe. Because we can choose to love, to create, to laugh, to explore, not for some higher, external reason, but purely because it is worth it, in the moment itself. Instead of viewing life as a curse, we can reimagine it as a vast, open playground, a space where we are gloriously free to explore, to build, to fail, to experience everything fully, without needing some external justification. And that, ultimately, is why Sisyphus is happy. He knows his task will never end, he knows the boulder will always roll back down. But he pushes anyway, not because it will lead to some ultimate destination, but simply because he chooses to. And when we, too, stop anxiously asking, "What's the point?" and instead boldly begin asking, "Why not?" that is when we truly become free. That is when life becomes lighter, brighter, more exciting. Because instead of endlessly searching for a meaning that doesn't exist, we start creating one for ourselves. And in that powerful moment, we win the game of the absurd. Camus, however, didn't stop at mere philosophy. He believed absurdism was not just a concept to ponder, but a way of life to embody. It wasn't about passively sitting around, contemplating the inherent meaninglessness of existence, it was about actively embracing it and transforming it into fuel for action. But how, practically, do we actually do that? Here are 3 concrete ways to live an absurdist life. Most of us spend our lives trapped in the paralysis of overthinking. What if I fail? What if things don't work out? What if I make the wrong choice? We hesitate, we overanalyze, we perpetually wait for the right time. But here's the liberating truth: the universe simply does not care. You could sit there, agonizing over every conceivable outcome, but the reality is, none of it matters as much as you think it does. Lost your job? So what? The world keeps turning, another opportunity will emerge. Failed at something? Who cares? The universe isn't keeping score. Made a mistake? Welcome to being human, move on. Camus teaches us that life is inherently absurd, unpredictable, and chaotic. Instead of wasting precious energy on overthinking, just take action. Because in the end, whether you succeed or fail, the boulder is going to roll back down anyway. So why stress over it? Because when you stop fruitlessly searching for some elusive, external meaning, you finally start truly experiencing life. Most people mistakenly believe that meaninglessness is a direct reason for despair. But Camus saw it as a profound opportunity. Since life has no inherent meaning, you are completely free to enjoy it entirely on your own terms. Think about it, when you laugh, even though life is meaningless, you are actively rebelling against the absurd. When you love, knowing full well that everything ultimately fades, you are rebelling against the absurd. When you create, knowing that nothing lasts forever, you are rebelling against the absurd. Every genuine act of joy is, in its essence, a powerful form of defiance. Instead of sitting around feeling lost, rebel by embracing life anyway. Laugh loudly, love deeply, explore without needing a grand, external reason. Most of us hesitate endlessly before making big decisions. Should I start that business? Should I take that risk? Should I travel, learn something new, or finally follow my passion? And our brains, ever protective, reliably respond with a daunting list of reasons why we shouldn't. It's risky. It might not work. It's not practical. What if I fail? But Camus would challenge us to flip the question. Instead of asking, why should I, ask, why not? Why not start that project? Why not take that calculated risk? Why not live boldly? Because at the end of the day, the boulder is going to roll back down no matter what. So why not, indeed, have some fun with it? Camus' absurdism, then, is not about surrendering to meaninglessness, it's about courageously revolting against it by choosing to live, to act, to experience everything without needing some grand, external purpose. And once you start seeing life through this transformative lens, everything changes. You stop waiting. You stop hesitating. You stop worrying about things that ultimately don't matter. Instead, you simply start living. From the moment we are born, we are continually told that life has a purpose. Society, religion, culture, everyone offers us answers. This is the right path. This is what you must do. This is what will give your life meaning. And so, we spend our lives endlessly searching, looking for meaning in success, in relationships, in beliefs, ideologies, and achievements. But what if the profound truth is this: there is no inherent meaning? Not written in the stars, not waiting to be discovered, not hidden in some ancient text. At first, this might sound terrifying. But Camus saw it differently. If life has no inherent meaning, then you are completely, utterly free. Free from external expectations, free from societal pressure, free from the burden of needing a reason to live. And in that radical freedom, you gain something extraordinary, the power to create your own meaning. Not because the universe gives it to you, not because some higher force demands it, but simply because you choose it. Camus' message is both simple and profoundly liberating: live fully. Laugh loudly. Love deeply. Create. Explore. Experience. Not because life has some pre-written purpose, but because you are alive, and that, in itself, is more than enough. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Albert Camus. So, what do you think? Do you agree with Camus' transformative view on life and meaning? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video thought-provoking and inspiring, please don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a new upload. See you in the next one.